You are listening to Comedy Club for Kids presents Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense. Hello and welcome to Radio Nonsense, the official Comedy Club for Kids podcast for all ages from to and everything in between. Sorry, I'm Tiernan and I'm long overdue for a haircut, and so much that my hair is like I can't really see a thing, and it keeps going in my mouth when I talk, and washing my hair is currently taking 3 days. 3 days! And then by the time I finish, it needs another wash. Yeah, every day is a bad hair day right now. Well, not bad hair, that's unfair, is it? My hair isn't being bad. If it was bad, it would say things like, I'm going to take over the world, or it would do a poo on the carpet. So, it's more annoying hair. And it will not be combed or brushed at all. I've tried every type of brush as well. Tooth, hair, toilet, none of them are working. So, you're probably thinking, shall I have soup for breakfast or breakfast for soup? And the answer is, of course, soup. But you're probably also thinking, Tiernan, why don't you just go get your hair cut? And that is a very good question. And the answer, of course, is that, last time I was in the barber's, they said, do you want a number 2 all over? And I jumped out of the chair and ran away, as that sounded awful. Like, no one wants a number 2 on their head. It would take me at least 4 days just to wash that out, and it would smell. Is that what barbers do, is it? Poop on people's heads? Does your hair then get so disgusted it just falls off? Ugh. Linda, is that what happens, Linda? Do you go to the barber and they poop on your head, Linda? Oh, sorry, hang on. I've just got to get that. If I can find it through all this hair. Where is my phone? Oh, no, that's not my phone. What is that? Oh, Cliff the Snake. Sorry, Cliff. Oh, is that it? Oh, no, that's a priceless vase. Oh, well. Here you go. Okay, sorry, Samuel Barber. My apologies. Bye. Whoops. That was Samuel Barber, and he said that barbers don't poo on heads, and number 2 is the grade of haircut you want. So I guess like grade 1 is when your hair first starts school, and you get bits of macaroni and crayons in your hair, and then grade 2, is when it's a bit bigger, and you get colouring pictures of the countries and things in it, and so on and so on and so on. So what grade would I want my haircut? This is so annoying. Oh, wait. Oh, what have I found? What's that? What have I walked into? The mailbag. And this week, what is inside except... Oh, great. Thanks, Ma99225 in the United States, who has done a review of the show. Thank you, that is actually very nice. Which says, Hippo Army, and has included, I kid you not, 300 stinky hippos. And, hang on, I'm just going to comb my hair so I can see, comb it out of my eyes. And yes, the hippos, they've already set up a base and are marching up and down the table, farting away, which is awful. It's just awful. Please don't send any more farting or stinky hippos. I mean, once I put these in the little bit of the fridge where you keep the butter, there will be no space left. None. No space in the fridge at all. It's just full of stinky hippos, and I can't stack them on top of each other as they sort of act like a tower room fan farting away in rotation. It is the worst. But don't forget, if you want to review the show, you can do it on any of the places that podcasts live, like Spotify or Stripify, or Wavy Lineify, Zapple Podcasts, there's Pear Podcasts, Strawberry Podcasts, Amazon, or any of the other rivers of the world. And if you have any questions that you need answering, or you want to send in jokes, ideas for intros for the show, or anything else, all you have to do is ask your nearest Parp of Fartican City, grown up, to help you email me at podcast@comedyclub4kids.co.uk. Do also check out our live shows. We've got loads coming up, and you can find all the dates at comedyclubforkids.co.uk. I'm doing quite a few of the upcoming ones myself, if I can ever see through this hair to get there. So please come and say hello if you see the show. Not that I'll be able to see you if I haven't had my hair cut. Come and say hello if you see the shows. That rhymes, doesn't it? I'm a poet, but don't know it. You can also grab our t-shirts or our book at comedyclubforkids.store. And don't forget to also listen and subscribe to the Bust or Trust podcast, which I also co-host. Last week's was all about missing pirate treasure. Do have a listen. Now, where is my watch? Hang on. Oh, no, that's not it. Not there. It must be under this hair somewhere. Is that it? Cliff! Come on, Cliff. Stop it. Just go away. Right. There's my watch. Right, so now it's time for the most importantest bits. Yeah, I thought it was. And while you listen to that, I'm going to see if there's any way I can control all of this hair.
Simply by changing the style of her hair.
Oh my goshness, right here on Radio Nonsense is Alisdair Tremblay-Birchall, aka Alisdair, who everyone knows has a favourite particular stare, aka Ali Tremble's B Royale Biscuit Taster Extraordinaire, and as all our Croatian-speaking listeners know you, is Gleda Ko Tuzni Tosta. But of course, you are most famous for discovering the rare massive atom that's so large everyone just thought it was the moon, for your extensive work helping to reintroduce Henry Hoovers back into their natural habitat, and of course for starting the trend of giving storms and hurricanes middle names and surnames as well as first names. Alisdair, it's so lovely to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Oh my gosh, it's just so nice to finally meet somebody who knows me for my middle name, my storm middle name work. That I've been doing for so many years. I'm the one who gave Cyclone Marie, finally started calling her Cyclone Marie Barbarella, as you know.
Yes.
That's the middle name. Of course, they don't have last names. That's the problem.
Yes.
That's the one confusing part, is that you give them a middle name, but then that middle name is now their last name, even though it's what we're saying is we're waiting for a scientific discovery for the last names to finally be able to be added on to the storms.
Right, and what's the issue with, because I suppose the issue with last names is, we often get last names from our grown-ups, from our parents. It's hard finding out who a storm's parent is or what their kind of history is.
Yeah, well, it's also, it's hard to attach that many names to them because they're so windy.
Sure.
Often the names sort of blow away, and so you can probably anchor 2 names to it, first and middle name. And of course, the problem is, it's hard finding their parents. Yeah.
It's really hard. It's like, this is Storm Marie, but was her dad that breeze that passed by 3 months ago? Or was it hard? Yeah, the big thunder that happened last month. Yeah, it's very tricky. Yeah.
Well, most wind is invisible.
Yes.
And so you need people who you can only see the wind usually through the grass that it sort of shakes, or the leaves that it rustles, and so it's just hard to then ask the wind what its name is, once you do find it, because it's so fast moving.
Yeah, I should just clarify for listeners where we mean wind as in weather. We're not talking about like when you've got bad wind, which is also invisible unless you've got really bad wind, and then sometimes slightly green. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I am also trying to name that wind if I can catch it.
Right, that's got to be even harder, because that's only around for a matter of minutes sometimes. I mean, unless again it's really bad and then really lingers.
That's right. Yeah, but it's I try to make a point of any time somebody farts near me, I do go. I give it a little name. I christen it. I go, Marcus, like that, or somebody goes like that, and I go, that's Isabel.
That's nice. And do you know there's something nice about that as well? Because often people get blamed for farts, or people are like, oh, who did that? And, oh, that's your fault. Oh, it's disgusting. But you give the fart a name, it's got ownership of its own smell. So exactly. Now, there's Marcus. You can't complain at me for Marcus's smell. That's just how he smells. I mean,
It was Marcus wanted to come out. He's like, and then you can introduce them. You can go, well, now Sally, meet Marcus, and then suddenly it's no longer awkward in any way.
That's beautiful. That's really nice, and I think you've sort of removed so much stigma about farts in such a quick moment there, and you've made them much more acceptable. And in fact, people will be wanting farts at their parties.
Well, that's right. And what's great is that, speaking of parties, is that when you go to the toilet and you do lots of farts and you're in that little room all by yourself, all those farts, they're each an individual person. And so you actually create a sort of a big stinky party in that room, and you can introduce them to each other as you're doing it. It's quite fun, actually.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful That's a beautiful thing. Well, listen, I wanted to just jump back a minute, because your storm naming, which I think is wonderful, and I think that, I have to say, I get quite angry knowing the work you put in, and I see, like, on the news, it's just like Storm Dave, and they never say the middle name, even though I know you're there adding it with careful thought and consideration. But
That's right.
You're talking about surnames. Is your dream eventually to give them surnames and maybe titles as well? Would they get a doctor or a sort of Ms, or is that the hope?
I mean, I would love to be able to give them titles, absolutely. Doctor, especially for any kind of breezes that, you see around universities or any kind of educational, institutions. That's, sir, that's, for any time. Because, when a king or queen is knighting somebody, a lot of the time that, they use a sword and then they pass it, they put it on the shoulders of the person that they're knighting. But before that, the sword goes through the air, right? And while it's going down, it's actually knighting all that air, especially if there's a breeze going through it.
Wow.
And so there already are knighted breezes and gusts. Even I've heard that there's a knighted zephyr.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
But it's the problem with finding them so that you can actually identify them. And I've taken photos of them, but that not much comes up on the photograph.
Yes, of course, that is very tricky. Do you have to sort of draw it in with a pencil where you think it is and give it a little face?
Exactly. I sort of put some like squiggly blue lines a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's nice.
And then with the last names, giving them last names, what we are trialing is just giving them, because a lot of the time our last names come from one of our ancestors' jobs.
Oh yes, yeah.
So then you can sometimes, if you want, and we're trying this with young storms, seeing if we can give them, just start the tradition of giving them last names. So let's say this wind knocks over a wall. Well, you can call it, Bob Franklin Wall Destroyer.
Yes, that's a great surname.
Yeah.
That's a great surname.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandfather was actually a wall destroyer as well.
Wow.
But he's not a breeze, yeah.
Is that right?
But
So
that
how
was
did
what
he so he obviously didn't do it by just sort of huffing and puffing like a big bad wolf, did he? Or did he use some other tool to destroy walls?
He was smart. He used his head. So he would just, like those dinosaurs that just run at each other and then bang skulls together.
Wow.
He would just do that at brick walls and then make them fall down. Eventually they'd fall down. He'd rub his head a lot. It would be pretty painful.
Sure, yeah, but that's a very admirable way to do it, and also it means you can travel light. You don't have to carry tools anywhere. You've just got your head, which most of the time you take with you. Yeah.
He kind of worked in construction or demolition.
Yeah.
And so it was nice being able to go from town to town, just knocking over walls. He was very free, just had a tent on his back, and he could just, sleep on the work site like that, and which is safe because he's already knocked down all the walls.
Yes.
So he doesn't have to fear that any walls will fall on him.
That's fantastic. And I'm really pleased you added that in there, that he worked in construction, because I was going to ask, was he just doing it for fun? Would people be having breakfast and then your granddad's head would sort of burst through the wall? But I'm guessing, no, he was professional.
Well, obviously he started knocking it over for fun, and that's how he realized he was so good at it.
Right, right.
He knocked over all of his family walls.
Right.
So then eventually what they did is they actually just built roofs all around him. They had one normal roof, right? A sort of ceiling and roof. And then they started putting sort of side roofs. And that was the one way that they could get around. They looked like a lot like walls. I'm going to be honest with you. They looked like walls because they were sort of a roof that was vertical, like that.
Right,
it would go up like that. But it was just so that they could still enclose the house within multiple roofs, but he knew he couldn't knock those over because they weren't technically walls. They were just vertical
clever.
roofs.
That's very clever. Because I assume he also can't. He couldn't knock over a floor. So if you carpeted everything, he'd just think he was in an endless floor.
That's exactly what they started doing as well. They started carpeting, some, in walls that he hadn't knocked over. Sometimes they would just carpet them to stop him, so that he thought it was a floor, and then he knew that was not in his jurisdiction.
That's very good. Do you think it's your? I don't. It would be nice to give your granddad credit for things, extra things. Obviously, he's an incredible wall destroyer, but listeners may not be aware, but when you record things, not like we're recording now actually, but when you record things professionally, sometimes all the walls are carpeted, or to make them soundproof. And I'm wondering if your dad accidentally, your granddad accidentally invented the first ever sound studio.
It's funny that you should bring that up because he did, because my dad, like you were mentioning, was really into recording things, but he hated the echo inside the rooms, the sound bouncing off of the walls like that. But as as everybody was trying to, my grandfather was the cause of these rooms being created, but he didn't put the carpet on there himself, because he didn't have the intelligence to sort of stop himself from trying to knock down walls because it was what he loved doing. Yeah,
and I bet he would have had the intelligence if he hadn't used his head to knock down so many walls.
I think that actually every time that he hits his head hits a wall with his head, he does kill a few brain cells.
Yeah,
and so, but he was still very smart. He did a crossword puzzle every day.
Wow,
really badly, but but he still did one. Yeah.
That is one of those things that people and I'm glad you brought that up because people do always say, "Oh, I completed a crossword puzzle," but there's no authority to check that you've done it right. Like you can send it in. Sometimes there's you send it in, you might get a prize, but there's no sort of crossword judicial board. There's no sort of crossword police that go around and check. Because you could just write in any word in any space.
Absolutely.
And no one cares.
Yeah. Yeah, no, my grandfather was very famous for being able to fit a lot of 12-letter words into 6 spaces,
Right.
He could make anything work.
That's great.
Sometimes he would put letters that weren't even in those little squares. Sometimes he'd write a little letter next to it, just next to all the squares like that. And he'd just write, like a letter to his wife, my grandmother, and then he'd like that, and then he'd go done like that, and then he'd draw a picture of a bum or something like that, and he'd go finished like that, and we'd all go, "You're very smart, Grandpa," and then he'd go knock over a wall.
That's beautiful. What a great. I like, but if his job is he gets rid of barriers in in construction, why not get rid of barriers in crosswords too? Those little lines between the letters, they don't mean anything to someone who has care for walls.
A lot of the time he would hit his head up against those little walls and try to break them, but he would he would just hit his head against the crossword like that, and then he would start writing outside of those walls.
Wow.
Even though they didn't actually break, but he would, he might be able to rub off some of the ink with his hair, the sort of the friction from his hair rubbing up against the ink, but never completely disappeared. That was something that he felt bad about a lot of the time.
Yes, I can bet. It's lovely. Your granddad sounds fantastic. Is your granddad still with us? Obviously he's not with you right now, or is he? Is he in the room? I can't see.
Well, I can hear him. I can hear him practicing just on the other side. On the other side of the house. He does, but he doesn't knock down the walls. But he's just set up a mat. And he just sort of runs towards the wall, and he does about 100 before bed every night, just to keep his head nice and nice and healthy.
Is that? I'm sure we probably shouldn't encourage listeners to get into this industry if they want to become wall destroyers. But is there a sort of place that you could practice, just see if you've got a taste for it? Like, is it worth running headfirst into a sort of one of those called punch bags? Or if they've got gymnastic mats, they could prop one up on the wall and just run into it. Is there ways to practice?
Oh, yeah. A great place to start, my grandfather always, when he was training me up to be able to do it, is to just use your pillow on your bed and just bang your head against your pillow a little bit like that. That's and clever. Just start getting it nice and strong.
Yeah, sure.
But you got to start soft, So start with a pillow. You might move your way up to a cushion. Sometimes you can get a big pad of A4 paper. You could just just bounce that on your head like that.
That's very good.
Maybe you could, I don't know. Yeah, you could. If you find something that seems like it still has a bit of squish in it, that's then
I'd have
that's
thought
where you
something
can
like
grow
an
from.
armadillo would be quite good.
I love that because their legs have a little bit of give in them. So if it's a great way to start hitting your head against something that's a bit hard,
Yes.
but that's a bit springy as well. So if you find one, you just press your head against it, and his little legs will go, will sort of go out a little bit like that, and then they often make a noise. They go like that.
Wow.
And that's when you've pushed enough.
That's incredible. Wow, that was you've clearly done this a lot. And I was going to ask you like where you are with your head conditioning. That's not the right word because you get because when you get conditioner in a bottle, it doesn't make your head suitable for wall bashing, does it? It just sort of makes your hair shiny. So is it head conditioner?
No, you're right.
Yeah, I don't know what.
But my head is becoming shinier though. And my head is becoming shinier as it gets harder. And I'm now hitting my head up against the side of a rhino, which is kind of like an armed.
Wow.
Like an armored animal. So that is like it's basically like hitting your head up against an armored van.
Yeah. And how does the rhino feel about this?
Well, the great thing is that they don't feel it a lot of the time up until you get really good. And then they kind of give you a bit like, they like to congratulate you because actually for a rhino, they don't get to feel much because their skin is so thick. So once you really get them, they actually go, oh, like that. They're actually quite, they're like, they're kind of saying like, hey, good on you. You've made me feel something, which for them is nice. They're getting through life, feeling quite numb a lot of the time.
Oh, that's sad.
These poor rhinos.
That's sad. Wow. Yeah. You're doing an environmental service as well as a construction service. It's incredible. Are there any, just health and safety wise, are there any animals you definitely shouldn't headbutt?
Oh yeah, definitely. I wouldn't headbutt an ant.
Oh.
Just because they do disappear very quickly, and you kind of just get a lot of squished ants on your forehead.
Oh, that's not nice. Yeah.
And then they let out a little smell, and it just kind of and then you kind of your head smells like ants, and then you're like, and it's actually quite hard. It doesn't come out in the shower.
Sure.
Sure. Squished. Yeah. So I wouldn't do anything that's smaller than a mouse.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because they just leave a lot of juice on your forehead. And I usually practice right before going to work. And I don't want to mess up all my clothes and things like that. And most small animals just leave a smell on your forehead.
Yeah, and then also you've got this kind of escalating issue as well. If you headbutt some ants, then you headbutt a rhino, and then the rhino gets confused, smells the ants, think an ant has headbutted me, starts becoming scared of ants. Rhinos then can't live in their natural habitat where there's lots of ants. Rhinos have to migrate to countries where there's no ants. You create this big environmental issue.
Absolutely. Well, that's right, because you ruin whole ecosystems because the system is in balance. And so then the rhinos go where there's no ants, which is in the sea.
Yeah.
Right? And then you get a lot of they push sea creatures out, like things like whales.
Yeah.
And then the only place that they can go is onto land. Right? And so then they often, you'll see, if you've ever walked around near puddles, you'll often see whales that have just their head in the puddle just so that they can kind of keep wet like that. But this is just so that they're trying to get away from the rhinos.
Yeah.
But you know what? Whales are actually really nice to headbutt.
I bet. It's sort of nicely squishy, but just sort of firm enough to get a good headbutt. But do they sort
Absolutely,
of, that because they've got that water spout, if you sort of do it well enough, do they go psh and do the water spout?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and also sometimes if you accidentally miss their body, you get your head in the water spout.
Oh wow!
Like that, and then you can have a little look in there. It's quite nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's it?
I wear a head torch when I head back.
Sure.
When it allows you to just have a look, and then if you look inside, that's kind of like the inside of their nose, I think.
Right.
And so you can have a look like that, and you can have a look at all the boogers and any kind of whale snot.
Wow.
And things like that. Yeah, sometimes they get something stuck in there. You might see like a baby seal or something like that, and you can grab it, and you can actually do some good for the whale.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I suppose also if you've still got ants on your forehead, you just leave your face there, and when they shoot the water up, little shower.
It's actually really nice. It cleans all that smell off.
Yeah.
And in the absence of that, I have developed, and if anybody's interested, I have developed a forehead perfume that is perfect for getting the ant smell off.
Right.
I just kind of go psh, 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 psh. This is, when I do it before work, and I didn't have any armadillos or anything like this, and I just squished a bunch of stink bugs or like or like a centipede or something like that, and I got a real smelly forehead, and then I just go psh, 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 and people walk in. I walk into work, and they're always going like, "Oh my goodness, Alisdair, your forehead smells so delightful. What are you using?" And I say, "Oh, it's my forehead perfume."
Wow. Have you got? Has it got a name? Have you got like a fancy name, like a sort of I don't know, like Spam by Alisdair, or like
Spam would be a much better name. I've just kind of gone with FH1, which is forehead one.
Oh, I like that though. But that sounds very cool. That sounds very cool, and I think it would make more people buy it than Spam, because also they may then try and put
Spam would be good
sandwich.
though.
Yeah.
I think a good spiced ham. A Spam is actually often what my forehead smells like after I've squished a few mice.
Right, so actually then you wouldn't then want to spray the same smell onto your forehead.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
Then it smells double smell.
I just like the idea of lots of French supermodels, because it's always these fancy French supermodels, these adverts saying like the name of the perfume, and it's quite like Spam, and it would all sound really
there's
cool.
no reason why we couldn't try marketing it that way, at least.
Wow. Well, listen, Alisdair, this has already been so educational and so informative, and I wish I researched into you. I knew nothing about your granddad, so I'm sorry for not bringing that up at the start, but it's been fascinating finding out about him. But obviously, I do have you on this show for a reason. We've got a very big and important question that's been asked that I know you are the man to answer it. However, I've got to put in a little clause here. We've got some admin questions first. Are you okay with a little bit of admin?
Oh. Admin is my favorite thing, so I'm glad that this is.
Wow!
That you have these questions.
Yeah. Oh, is the major question after is almost going to be a letdown? Then is the admin going to be the high? I'm worried the admin's the high point.
This is the peak, but you know what? In my head, while you're asking the other question, I'll just be whispering to myself, "Admin, admin, admin, admin," and I'll pretend that it's admin.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. We'll try and find a way to do it in the most admin-like way. So
thank you. You're being very kind.
We've got to, you're kind enough to be on the show. I've got to make an enjoyable experience for you too. So listen. Let's do the admin bit first. The pre-admin admin. And the first bit of this. Now, I feel a bit funny asking you this because you've already made two incredible noises for the show. Your noise of both the armadillos and, of course, the rhinos. But this show is an audio show. I'm not sure if you're aware.
Yeah.
I'm afraid people won't see.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I know you're wearing.
I thought this was a hologram show.
Right? Is that what you? Is that what you?
I thought I was gonna. Yeah, I thought I was just going to appear in people's rooms as a kind of like a ghostly kind of hologram-looking figure like that, and then I was going to do dances. I thought the dances were about to start.
I mean, I'm hoping we can implement this at a later date. And I'm sorry, it's really awful for the listeners they're not witnessing your incredible dance moves, because I have to say it is quite something to see.
Yeah.
But we were hoping to go a bit like the big. There's a big ABBA tour show going around the world. It's just the holograms. And I was hoping we would have the same thing. People listen to this. But it turns out that it can just be a bit scary having someone appear in your room and dance when you're
you're
not expecting it.
Then I think you've made a great choice then by not making it holograms. That was just me being, I think it was just wishful thinking, but I wasn't thinking about the children properly.
Yeah. It's also, there's a big issue with, at the moment, the only holograms they have in the world are of ABBA, I think. And so it would have to be whoever they were listening to, it would still have to be the big Swedish pop band that appear and no one else.
I mean,
I would confusing.
I would try, and I would try to speak like them, and I would try to dance like them, and everything like that. But I understand that I can't do it right now, and that's fine. The technology's not there yet.
One day, and hopefully one day it will be the case. But until then, this is just audio, so our listeners tend to listen to it with their ears, but they may also listen with their bums or their knees, and we don't really mind how they choose to do it.
Yeah.
And so I just wondered, if apart from the noises you've already done, which were fantastic, if you had a favourite noise that you could make for us.
I do actually. I feel like I can cry like a baby. I think.
Right. Okay.
So I go like a. and then cough like a baby.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was incredible. When do you need to use that? Are there times when it's really helpful to cry like a baby?
Well, often babies cry, and people try to talk to them, but they speak only adult language. So I find that if you get down on their level and you cry to them in the way that they would communicate, they find that they respond very well.
Is that right? So, I mean, we were talking about whales earlier. Is it like how whales have whale song, where they kind of go, "Rrr," and the other whale goes, "Rrr"? Is it that you do baby cries to baby cries?
You know, they're just looking for somebody who speaks their language, and that's why they're so upset. You know,
sure.
And so I've become fluent in baby cry, and what you heard me say earlier was, "There, little one, I'll go get you a sandwich right now."
Wow.
You know, and then usually they kind of, "Oh, just milk will do," is what they're saying.
Sure.
And then I go, "All right, well, I'll make a sandwich anyway, just in case." You know, you end up being a bit more hungry for solids or something like that. You know,
that's great. It's always important to have a sandwich in case. I think it's for life. Just always have a sandwich in case. I was going to ask if there's any times, and incredible that you use it to talk to babies, but are there any times as well? Maybe you're on a flight somewhere and you're thinking everyone's having too nice a time on this flight. It's too calm.
Yeah,
you can break out some baby crying just to really, give them the full experience.
Absolutely. And the great thing that I can do, of me over a baby is that I can do it whilst walking up and down the aisles like that, and make sure that everybody gets it equally, going like that. So everybody, and I can even go into the cockpit and do it into the ears of the pilots.
Wow.
You know,
that's brilliant.
If anyone's sitting on the toilet, just open up the door and go like that. Make sure everybody gets their fill.
That's amazing. It's an amazing
Phil is
skill
the name
to
of
have.
the baby.
And I think, a lot of people can be jealous that they could only do that when they were a baby and wish that they could do it now as an adult. And I think it's so good that you've retained that skill.
Yeah, no, I do get a lot of very jealous people getting angry at me because
I bet.
They're very envious of my talent.
Well, it's an incredible talent. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's
No
fantastic.
problem.
We've definitely not had that on the show before. And the other admin question, of course, I do have to ask you is: this show is suitable for people of all ages, any age you can imagine. I don't know if you can imagine an age.
Oh, I could try.
Yeah.
Let's see. Blue, is that an age? Wait.
The blue age. I'm sure it is. I'm sure someone's blue years old.
Yeah, I think I've met someone who was blue. Wait, let me see. Let me try again. Just to be sure.
Sure.
Just double. Let's see. Hinge.
Hinge. It sounds very close to age, isn't it? In letters. I'm sure it's fine.
Right,
yeah, I mean,
that's why I guessed that.
The fact is, this podcast is suitable for everyone who would be blue age or hinge age years old, regardless.
What about
it's suitable for everyone.
Page,
yes, definitely Page. Yes, definitely Page. Yeah, and Sage as well. If anyone out there is the age of a herb, then this is fine for them as well.
Exactly.
So it's suitable for all ages except 100. Very long story, but apart from 100, all ages: hinge, blue, Sage, Page. Everything. And so just to check that it's going to be all right for them, I want to know if there are any rude words that you won't be saying.
Definitely so. Okay, it goes like this. Okay, now I'll just say it to you if that's okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's sponkle dark.
Oh
yeah, and that one is so bad that I would never use that. Sponkle dark. That's, yeah.
I don't know if I've been allowed to hear that word before, because I know that there's a list of words that most people aren't allowed to hear because they're so awful.
Well, most parents don't let their kids hear or say sponkle dark, usually well into their 50s,
That's what I thought.
So I think my dad was maybe 55 when his dad let him say sponkle dark for the first time.
Right. That's you've done it quite young. Have you got a special license or?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would go to a speaking range and I practice. I go they put me into a room and they let me just say some words at a wall.
Right.
And there's like there's an outline of a person there, and then I try to say it towards their ears.
That's clever. That's
Like
very
that.
good.
I go sponkle dark, and I try not to miss, and I get really good at speaking. And once you can say it accurately enough, then they give you your license.
That's very good.
Because it's the kind of word that you don't want it to escape and hit the wrong person. You know, you want to make sure it gets to the very person you're trying to express it to.
Yes, well, I appreciate you not saying it on the show because, you know, who knows, our listeners could be hearing this with their ears, but as I said, they could be hearing it with almost any of their elbows, and then suddenly, who knows what would happen if they had Spunkledork in that.
That's right.
Yeah.
If they had one of the speakers up against their back and they had a big back listen and they heard it with their back, that's so much surface area to hear that word. Such a bad word over such a big area. It could ruin them, I worry.
Yeah. No, I fully agree, and I really appreciate you not saying Spunkledark, and I also certainly wouldn't say it, especially as I've not even got close to a license, nor am I 55.
I will not say it once. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, thank you for that, Alisdair. I really appreciate you doing the admin. Now, listen, obviously, this next bit is admin in a way, and I will I will read this out to you. There's a lot of admin. There's a lot of information in this, so maybe that will help. This is from.
Oh yes, that's good.
Yeah, this is to read it properly. For some reason, on the sheet I have in front of me, it says it's got a 1 and then a dot. I don't know why, because there is only one question, so maybe it's just to let you know there is one. But this is from Elise, who is age 6, except then in brackets says almost 7, 15th of March. So I'm guessing that she's already 7 now, unless she's not 7 till the next 15th of March, or she's 7 15th of Marches. I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, why?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she could be 8 or 9, depending on how long ago this was sent to you.
Oh, that's the point. Yes. Yeah.
And if it was sent through time, maybe it was sent through a time machine email.
Yeah, well, because that's the thing, is it did arrive by email, but who's to say that she didn't write it on a letter, give it to a snail, the snail took it to a pigeon, the pigeon carried it through time, and then the time wizard typed it up and sent it to me as an email. You know, so I don't know for sure.
So there's so many different people there who could have been traveling through time. So she could be 1,000 years old by now.
My gosh. She could be Hinge age. Yeah.
She could be Paige.
She could be Paige.
She could be Paige age. She could be Sage.
Paige age. Wow, goodness. Well, you know, I feel like I hope she hasn't been waiting too long. I hope she hasn't been. I'd feel bad if she's waited 1,000 years. Is now Paige and is still.
You got to get onto these quicker.
The answer to this, yeah. Well, listen. So she said she's that was her Paige, but she's a UK expat in Dubai. So I think that means she used to be called Pat, but she's not called Pat anymore.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Pat.
Ukpat. Is that what you have to call?
Yeah.
Is that what you have to call it?
Well, UK Pat, you know. No, sorry.
I see. It's expat. Yeah, so that's what I mean. Is that it used to be a Pat. So but then she changed her name to Elise. So.
Oh, okay, right. Wait, did her name used to be Expat?
Oh, maybe Expat.
Expat. Look, I don't know. You know, it's so hard with. You know, I'm not very good at poetry.
Yes, it is very tricky. I mean, it could be that Expat is the sort of file system she sent this on. It sounds very like Windows Expat.
Could have been coding language or something like that.
It could be coding language, especially if she sent this through time. There's a lot of questions. I mean, look, we haven't even got to the question. There's a lot to ask already, and that may well.
But this feels very admin,
good.
And it makes me feel good.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, then, the question I think is so admin because there's 2 questions to this one question. So I feel hopefully that will help this.
Yeah.
But here we go. The first bit is, why does broccoli look like little trees? But then it's followed up with, or is it that trees are giant broccoli?
See, that's a very good question. But actually, the first one is correct because there was an evil scientist, a genius scientist who hit trees with a food ray.
Right.
You see, a food ray gun. And and then when they hit it with it, it just turned trees into food, and that's how you got broccoli.
Wow.
Right? But there's lots of things like that. You know, if you look at carrots, you know, when carrots, they have that sort of green, fluffy kind of, green leaves on the top of them.
Yeah, like the
That's
little hair bit. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I think that was actually a small rocket that was hit with the food ray.
Wow.
Like that, and then the green bit was the fire coming out of the bottom of the rocket.
Wow. I mean, this sounds very like it's obviously good because carrots are very good for you and broccoli is very good for you, but it does feel a bit irresponsible. Somebody had obviously spent ages building a rocket. I'm going to go to the moon, and then this guy comes along and goes, "Nope, it's a carrot now."
Yeah, no, I mean it's irresponsible, but think of all the people who the vitamins they now have inside their body thanks to this evil genius.
That's
true.
You know,
I mean, it would have been irresponsible for those people not to get those vitamins in their body as well.
That's true, and
So,
I mean,
which is worse?
I think he was also probably a bit more careful with the trees because obviously we've still got trees that aren't broccoli, but there aren't that many rockets. But then we have got happy rabbits, so
we have happy rabbits. We have lots of carrots, and we have a lot of healthy kids and adults because of it. Have you ever seen a walnut?
Yes, I have. Yeah,
yeah. That was just a brain that was food rayed.
Wow. But who's because again we're back to the responsibility thing. Somebody had a brain and then it got turned into a walnut.
Yeah.
And now
this one is easy because you take rats that have died of old age.
Right, okay.
So they lived a full life.
Yeah.
Right? And then you food ray their brain. You know?
Sure.
And then you can turn the rest of their body into a puppet. You can just use a puppet ray for that.
Right, okay. Oh, right. So he's got different rays. So then you've got a little dead rat puppet and a little dead rat brain that you can eat. Which sounds very healthy to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have it. It's very healthy for you, that walnut like that. And then also puppets don't need brains. So you can just then you can use it and you can turn it into any kind of puppet. You know, Big Bird from Sesame Street?
Yeah.
That used to be a rat.
Wow, they're just very stretched. They just sort of stretched because I think Big Bird's quite.
They just stretch
it's
it
in
out.
the name. It's quite big. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can stretch. Rats are actually very stretchy.
Right. Okay, I didn't know this. I didn't know that about rats. But I guess with your sort of your wall destroying head, you can probably sort of really like hammer out, like just headbutt it until it's kind of stretchier and yeah.
It's just like pizza dough. You just got to keep working it.
Yes.
And then you get it into the shape that you want, like that.
Wow, I mean, what happened? So it was a scientist. Did you say it was an evil scientist or just a?
It was an evil scientist.
It was an
even
evil
though I think he's doing a lot of good.
Yeah.
But he was an evil person because he would never go to bed on time.
Oh, I see.
He often he would take his seatbelt off before he was supposed to, things like that.
Wow, that's
really evil kind of guy.
They're not going to bed. I thought, well, that is pretty bad. That is pretty evil. But the seatbelt thing, and that really makes me wonder. You know, should we be condoning his work by eating broccoli? Because sure, it's a good thing, and broccoli is very good for you, but. But this guy who took his seatbelt off when he shouldn't have done, who was like zapping rats' brains, you know?
I find sometimes you got to learn to separate the scientists from the scientist discoveries.
Sure. That I do get that. What is he? Was this some time ago? Is he still alive now? Or?
Unfortunately, due to taking off his seatbelt, he was injured. So I think I think that he is probably still around, but he's having a very long sleep.
Which means he goes to bed on time. Yeah,
because he bumped his head, but he didn't train his head like my grandfather did.
Sure.
And so sometimes if you bump it really hard, it just puts you into a long sleep. But you're right, he did go to sleep on time for the first time.
Yeah. So that's actually a very good thing. I mean, this ray sounds incredible. Is there anything you wish you could turn into food if you'd had that ray?
I feel like a box of tissues, because then you'd have so many snacks. If each tissue you could eat.
Goodness.
Like that.
What do you think it'd be like? Because like you can get those like and I'm not sure this would be to our listeners' taste, but you can get like those seaweed thins, I think they're called, and they're like little kind of
Yeah.
sheets of seaweed. And I sort of imagine
Yeah.
tissues would be a bit like that. You pull one out and it almost sort of dissolves in your mouth. It's quite tasty.
Yeah, I think it is a lot like that. But the problem with those seaweed things is that there's never enough.
Yeah,
you only
that's
get like
true.
12 sheets or 10 sheets or something like that. But in a box of like 200 tissues, and if you could use the food ray and and sort of twist the setting to miscellaneous flavors, then each one might be a different flavor like that. And so you could go, oh, strawberry. You go,
Wow.
lima bean. You go, steak. Oh, chicken soup. Elephant.
Wow. That would be an
Things like that,
Yeah, that would be an incredible thing. What would happen if you? I mean, I suppose again with the thing, you don't have to turn every box of tissues into this, because if you were eating, you need to blow your nose. You don't want to make the mistake of you blow your nose on your next snack, and then your next snack tastes like bogies, even though it's not bogey flavor.
Well, you know what I do is that I usually travel with a head of lettuce, right? And I have another ray that allows me to turn things into tissues. And so I pull off a thing of lettuce and then I intissue it. And then I blow my nose in that.
That's very clever. You've also made me just wonder, because it's called a head of lettuce, was that something's head until the evil guy zapped it? Or
you found out, yeah. Because he actually turned the rest of the body into lettuce as well. So there's actually a head of lettuce, there's a leg of lettuce, there's a hand of lettuce, the neck of lettuce, torso of lettuce, bum of lettuce.
Oh no.
Mouth of lettuce.
Yeah.
All those things. But he actually didn't like any of those, so he just chucked them into a river. So that's why you don't see those anymore.
Oh, that's a shame. That is a shame.
Yeah.
That's quite a waste of lettuce. I mean, I'm not sure anyone would want to eat a
huge
bum of
waste.
lettuce, but it is a waste of lettuce.
No, yeah. But it actually, he made the first lettuce soup by doing that, because that river actually turned into a lettuce soup because of the vast amounts of lettuce in there.
My gosh.
I mean, it wasn't very nice because it had a sort of like a river water broth.
Yeah,
but it was still...
so watery. Oh, that's so horrible. What about ears of corn? Are they from ears? Then is that something's ears?
Oh my gosh! So do you know this guy's work? Because it's very clear that you've seen it. Yeah.
The thing is, I don't. You said it, and I don't know it, but I feel like now you've mentioned it. It's so many things are becoming clear to me that perhaps I had questions about. I always had questions about the fact that potatoes have eyes, that you get ears of corn.
Yeah. He did it because he wanted to be able to listen to things through corn. And so, because, a lot of the time you're listening to things through ears made of meat, right?
Right, sure,
but,
yeah.
Right, but he listened to his own ears, and they said that they were vegetarians. So he said, oh, well, how about I make ears of corn? Like that. And then he did that, and then he put them on his ears, and then his ears were really happy to listen through vegetables like that instead.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Very that sounds great, but at the same time I'd worry about, like, say, going to a barbecue if you had ears of corn, and next thing you know, someone's trying to like cook your ears.
That's right. They're sort of laying your ear down on the hot plate, and your corn ears are starting to pop.
Yeah.
Like that, and you've got just like popcorn ears all over the place, and that gets in the way of listening because all that popping sound.
Yeah,
you can't really listen anymore. Your ears are all white.
It just strikes me that, like, obviously he's done. We come back to this thing of separating the scientist from his science, but it's really hit and miss, isn't it? I mean, there was some really good stuff in there, and I think the broccoli's obviously turned out okay. I am kind of wondering. We're in an era where we could do with more trees. Maybe we should be zapping some of that broccoli back to trees. I don't know. Big questions.
Ugh, he doesn't have a tree ray. He doesn't have a tree ray. Now he's unconscious.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Wishful thinking,
so,
yeah.
And like his name was Ray as well.
Oh, I didn't
so
know
that's
that.
Where the name Ray comes from. Yeah,
right.
It was Raymond.
Right.
Raymond Gunn.
Wow. That's wow. That explains a lot.
Yeah.
It's a good name as well.
Yeah,
it's a great name, actually.
Yeah, well, he had very smart parents.
Yeah, not enough.
Good name pickers.
Really good.
And as a guy who gives things names, I can recognize a good name picker.
Yes. Would you consider, if there was like a wind of change, would you consider giving that the name Ray?
Ooh, yeah. Well, I mean, it'd have to be a very evil wind of change, because just to properly honor this unconscious man.
Yes,
but I would do it. Yeah,
yeah.
If it was like a particularly smelly fart, maybe that kind of wind.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose if it's a really strong like storm, like a hurricane, that actually tore trees out of the ground, that would feel quite appropriate.
That would be very appropriate, and then I wouldn't mind calling that one Raymond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, listen, Alisdair, thank you. What a fantastic answer, and I don't think Elise or Uckexpat or thousand-year-old Elise Uckexpat.
Yeah.
I don't know if she'd have known that was that takes some specialist knowledge.
Well, I've done a lot of studies and a lot of studying. And so I'm glad to finally be able to share this somewhere. And thank you very much, Elise Uckexpat, if that is your real name.
We will never know. By the next time we get a message from it, could be 1,000 years in the future, and we just.
That's true. Yeah.
So
she could live on the other side of the galaxy.
Maybe
true. That's why it took so long for the message to get here.
That is true. How do they? Have they got broccoli on the other side? I feel like this is maybe we're getting into a conversation too deep, but I think you're right. Maybe we've discovered something else about alien life, and this could be some fascinating research that needs to be done.
I mean, it would make sense why she doesn't know enough about broccoli. That maybe she's only seen a photo of it.
That's true. Yes.
Because she lives on the other side of the galaxy, and so she's like, "Well, I've seen a photo of trees. I've seen a photo of broccoli.
Yeah.
Could you explain this thing to me?" It could be the last thing she needs to know to understand all of human civilization.
Those are also the two main things we put on postcards that we send into space. So
that's right. Yeah,
it is very likely. Wow. Well, listen. I mean, it's always the way with this show that you often end up with more questions than you started with. But thank you, Alisdair. That was fantastic, and I hope Elise liked her answer if she ever gets to hear it. Are you up to much for the rest of the day, week, year, decade?
Yeah, I'm thinking about just doing 1,000 push-ups before I start my day.
Right.
Because I got to get I'm trying to get my biceps bigger. My arms. I'm trying to get them bigger than my head.
Wow.
Yeah.
What for?
So then sometimes I can hold my arms next to my head and fold them down. Just have my elbows up, and people think I have 3 heads.
That's amazing. And then will you be able to destroy walls with your arms and your head?
At 3 times the rate, I'm hoping. Yeah.
Wow. What a dream. Well, listen, good luck with that. Good luck with that.
Thank you so much.
I hope you can knock down all the walls.
That's the dream. Eventually, I'm hoping it will just be floors and roofs.
Good luck, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I really mean that. Thank you.
In this way, the hairstylist, an artist in every sense.
Thanks so much to Alisdair Tremblay-Birchall for his insights into wall destroying, wind naming, and of course for answering Elise Uckexpat's question. Elise, I hope you liked your answer and you haven't had to wait 1,000 years to hear it. If, of course, you weren't happy, then please do write your complaints on a wall and Alisdair's granddad will knock it down with his head so I never have to see it. If you haven't ever sent a question into the show and you would like to, or you just want to send in, well, anything at all really, except more hippo armies, I don't want any hippo armies, then please do get your parps of Fartican City, grown-ups, to help you email me at podcast@comedyclub4kids.co.uk. Come and see us live and you can find out all the places we're doing shows at comedyclubforkids.co.uk, grab our t-shirts and book at comedyclubforkids.store, and please also listen to the very, very fun Bust or Trust Kids Mystery Podcast, which I also host. Now, as you can probably hear, I don't have hair in my face so much anymore. Well, what happened is actually I thought maybe I should look for something to tie my hair back, like a hairband, but instead I found this. Yeah, a hairband. They were playing on the Fringe. Luckily, the audience that's come to see them has meant all the hair that was in my eyes is now stuck to my forehead as the crowd just jump up and down. I mean, it's not ideal, but this means I can see just enough to call a barber's and see if they can help. Hello, Samuel. I need you to come round and cut my hair immediately. It's got so bad that there's hair metal in it. No, I mean I found a large lump of copper and several brass instruments. But there is also a rock band. You'll be right over. How soon? Oh, wow, that was quick. Come on in. I'm here. That's a lot of hair. How about a number 2 all over? Oh, yeah, sure. Now I know what that means. That sounds very sensible indeed. Oh, no! Bye! You have been listening to Comedy Club for Kids presents. Radio nonsense! Radio nonsense! Radio nonsense! Radio nonsense! Radio nonsense! It's the end.